We're delighted to be joined on the stage by two members of the team from UPMC, and of course UPMC are our partners here on the live stream for the National Ploughing Championships in Ratheniska. First up, joining us on stage is Jane Campbell, and Jane is a physio manager with UPMC in Ostearthritis in Kilkenny. Jane, you're very welcome. And we're also joined by Elaine Rogan, and Elaine is a health and performance coach, and she's involved with UPMC in Setu in Waterford, and she's involved with sports medicine there. Ladies, you're very, very welcome. Look, there's a lot of walking going around the site, a lot of exercise. You'll be delighted we're all very active this week at least.
Yeah, there's some great distances even on the way in from the car parks. I was saying I'll get my steps in.
Yeah, there's definitely 10,000 plus going on over these few days, that's for sure. Look, I suppose, Jane, I'll start with yourself as a physiotherapist with UPMC. Tell us a little bit about the offering that UPMC has when it comes to physiotherapy services.
So within, we have a wide range from, don't be put off by the name sports medicine. We have offerings basically for anybody with any sort of musculoskeletal conditions, problems. They don't always have to be an injury per se. They can be just something that just crept up on people. So we do a wide range from people who have had an actual accident and an injury who want to come in, to people who maybe have had this injury that just crept up on them. And we also offer classes, which Elaine will talk a little bit more about later. We also do post-op rehabilitation. So if somebody has had an operation in the hospital, then they can come back to us for their rehab afterwards. And many of those are in individual sessions or group sessions.
Yeah, and I suppose the role of a physiotherapist when you're talking about rehabilitation, whether it's an injury or post-surgery, I suppose it's a crucial part of getting people back to a sense of normality or their normal selves.
Yeah, and you know, many of the surgeons will say, I've done my bit now to the patient, now it's over to you and the physios to get you back to your place of work or get back to your full health after that. So there's a great partnership between the patients and the physios and the surgeon. So we're all in it together, to excuse the pun there.
Yeah, and is there, I suppose, a diligence needed then when the exercisers are given that they have to be, you know?
They have to be done, because really if you're going to go to the trouble of going through a surgery, you really have to be prepared to do the work afterwards. And it's no more than, you know, working on a farm. Things don't just happen by accident. You actually have to put the effort in.
Yeah, and I mean, is it a one-to-one service obviously initially, and it broadens out then potentially?
Yeah, so it depends. So people might come in to us whether they decide to come in themselves, so we don't need a referral necessarily for them to come in, or they might be referred by their GP or their consultant. We do a one-to-one session with them. It might be that then they belong in a class setting, or it might be that they belong in a series of individual sessions. It just depends on the condition itself.
Yeah, and look, we're here at the National Ploughing Championships. Farming is an incredibly physical, demanding job. I'm sure you see a lot of farmers and farm family members coming into you as well.
Well, I would say probably 75% of the people I see are farmers, so it's either post-surgery or coming in, and I always joke it's usually not the farmer themselves who makes the first phone call. It's the family member, it's a wife, it's a daughter, it's a son, it's somebody else who's pushing them in the door to us to try and get something sorted. And it's far better to come in sooner rather than later. Yeah. Because you can nip something in the bud quite easily rather than maybe ending on a surgical pathway where you're months out.
Yeah, and is there a fear factor, you know, when it comes to that? I think a lot of us, if we've an ache or a pain, we're like, oh, it'll go away, and you just keep sweeping it under the carpet.
I think it's the same now. I wouldn't treat a farmer any different to an athlete. There's always a fear that the physio is going to say you have to stop. And for the most part, we don't say you have to stop. What we're saying is you have to modify your activity. So if you're doing something, there's ways around it. Like you said, farming's very physical, which is wonderful because farmers end up being much fitter than someone who sits at a desk all day. Yeah. You can modify what they're doing so you're avoiding the aggravating factor slightly. You know, there are other ways of doing it.
Yeah, so it's not that you're going to have to stop entirely, because farmers aren't great at putting the feet up, that's for sure.
No.
You obviously deal with the area of oncology as well, I understand, and unfortunately cancer is something that affects so many households.
Absolutely. So we have our Excel class that after their treatments that they would come and join then after that. So I suppose it's probably such a long treatment that they've gone through. So at that stage, they want to get back, they want to get fit, and they want to get back out to their normal activities. So it's a class, it's kind of everybody is coming into it from different areas and different purposes. Just in Waterford, the oncology department is quite big, so we have a lot of referrals in there from the hospital and from GPs as well. So we have the class in Kilkenny as well, looking after the 2 Exwell sites as well. So in that class, that it's kind of helping them gain a bit of confidence like that, get a little bit fitter and stronger again.
And I was going to say, in the class environment as well, people obviously feed off each other, and you've that shared experience as well, because maybe your family member might not understand what you're going through.
Absolutely, and I think that's the biggest thing I see, that it's only an hour exercise, but an hour later they're still having a cup of coffee together and chatting. And it's those times that they've told me that that's what gains more confidence. They're nervous coming into a class environment. They may be people that never have stepped in a gym environment or an exercise environment before, but then it's meeting somebody else that they might have gone through it a year ago and said, look, it gets better. Trust in the process, and each day you'll get a little bit better, and then it's hearing that, then they'll go home and then they'll feel, what, I can probably take on a little bit more then.
Yeah, and Jane, I suppose, Emily was mentioning like osteoarthritis and all these things. Like, I suppose, are they preventable? Is it kind of genetic? Is there ways that we can mind ourselves a little bit better? I'm going to use your I suppose, professional expertise a little bit to give viewers, I suppose, some helpful tips that might help them.
I suppose the first thing about osteoarthritis is it isn't inevitable that you're going to get progressively worse and worse with it. And if you have, lots of people are walking around with osteoarthritis who don't even know they have it, okay? You haven't worn out the joints. Some of it's genetics, some of it is old injuries. But when you have it, what you want to do is really just increase your capacity, increase your strength. Elaine mentioned, build up the muscles around the joint. You will inevitably go through flares of your osteoarthritis, but it's understanding that that's a flare. It's not going to last forever. You might need to take some pain relief to get it to calm down. You might need to back off a little bit, but if you're strong enough, you can actually overcome that. And it's really understanding it and being strong enough to deal with it.
What would be your, I suppose, couple of tips that, wellness tips that we could all kind of take on board and mind ourselves a little bit more?
I think movement is key. Just keeping moving and like that, trying to keep active. And as we were saying about the steps today, it's those, might be a hard target to reach 10,000 steps, but find an achievable target for yourself and just build from there. And like that, the more fitter we can keep our heart health as well, then it's going to inevitably help everything else along the way.
Yeah, would you agree, Jane, that's the movement is,
Absolutely, and that's why I say, actually, in the farming community, people are actually quite lucky because the nature of their job is moving, and I know people are fearful of, am I wearing myself out? You're actually not. You're strengthening, you're increasing. So if you do get a niggle in a joint, get it sorted. You're in a better position than someone sitting at a desk. So it's very important to just nip it in the bud.
Yeah, and to use the environment. And I suppose any kind of easy, demonstration exercise that you can show us. Well, what's a good common exercise that you might give somebody, Emily? Is there?
I think probably our sit to stand or your squat is the easiest. Like that, we do it so much for our daily life, just getting down and up and off a chair. Sometimes that is a difficult movement, but like that, pop a couple of cushions underneath the chair as well, and then it makes it a little bit easier. So every time you get up off the chair, do 10.
So it's kind of me being more conscious of how you move, maybe to protect yourself and to help yourself. And I suppose through the classes and through the physiotherapy service, people can learn how to do that as well.
And I think that's what we both probably try to do, is when somebody is in, and let's say they've come from farming or they've come from a certain background, we try and relate the exercise to something they're doing. So for example, sit to stand, you get up after your cup of tea, you're getting up. If it's a case of we're doing lunges as another exercise and we're holding weights, you could be holding 2 buckets of something, so you just try and relate it to a task that might be happening in day-to-day life. Climbing up on a tractor with your bad leg, those sort of things.
And look, I suppose it's to prevent the injuries, and that's what you're trying to do as well. Unfortunately, some of the people that you're seeing have suffered an injury, but if we can kind of get in there ahead of time, as you said, with the classes and the good health advice as well, and I think we could all take it on bored, to be honest. Definitely, yeah. But ladies, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
I suppose if people want to find out more, to look up UPMC, and the whole suite of services is available there, and they can join your classes. They can talk to yourself, Jane, as a physio as well, and get some
absolutely.
advice.
If they want to come and chat to us today, we're, I think, up at row 43, and we'd be happy to talk to people there.
Absolutely. You'll have us all in with our aches and pains. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us here in the Agriland tent, and to UPMC as well for being our live stream partner here at the National Ploughing Championships.